think of the type of person who would talk shit about the food at a baby's birthday party.
She'll make plans with us and flake, and I feel like at this point in my life, I'm just kind of over it.
I recall I told her, please, I'm trying to fix this. And she responded, I'm not trying to fix this. I'm just letting you talk. Welcome to another episode of the I'm Uncomfortable podcast, the podcast for people who want to be okay with being uncomfortable. We're your hosts, Vanessa and
Melissa.
And today we are tackling an interesting topic. We've done reaction videos before to people's submissions, but we polled you, our listeners, and asked you, have you ever been through a friendship breakup? Because that is a different type of breakup, I think. Yes. But before we get into the juicy submissions, we have so many, I'm excited. We always start by sharing what's made us uncomfortable lately. So Melissa, what has been making you uncomfy-wumpy?
Uncomfy-wumpy. So as the adult that I'm trying to be, always, I finally, after a long while of not going to get my annual doctor's appointment, physical check-in, whatever, I finally did. And between transitioning out of a job that had full insurance to getting my own insurance, so it was all these things that added up to me not going to my annual doctor's stuff. So finally I made an appointment, had to book it 2 months in advance, so there's that problem with the whole medical system. But I finally went, and I've shared it on the podcast before about how horrible of experiences that I've had at the doctor's, and this is an uncomfy moment because I went in there feeling anxious and nervous about it because this is a whole new doctor, a whole new set, a whole new system, and so I was nervous about it. And in order to help myself be less uncomfortable, I made myself notes, and I remembered Val from Riff Care mentioning going in prepared, and I know that other people have even brought friends with them to doctor's appointments so that someone else can even hear what's going on, so that they feel supported. So I definitely went in prepared, and actually it was an overall good experience. Still uncomfortable because I got all the things done. I got blood work, I got a flu shot, I got my pap smear, I got a whole thing, all the things. So it was a lot all at once. I honestly just thought I was gonna go in there and get my my referral to the dermatologist I've been wanting to see, and take my normal weight, blood pressure, all that stuff. But I didn't realize I was gonna get 4 vials of blood drawn. I was I didn't even fast. And the nurse was it's okay. That's only for one test. If it comes back abnormal, we know it's because you weren't fasting. It's fine. I'm okay. And then she's have you had the flu shot? I'm no, not yet. I'm should I get it? She's I recommend it. I'm okay. Put it in my arm. And so it was a lot. And I also got a pap smear, and I also allowed myself to lean into the discomfort because the doctor was sharing the educational environment with a medical student. So she was there, and she let the medical student, she asked me if it was okay if the medical student did my pap smear. And I was
oh no.
I said yes. I was I understand having a cousin who went through medical school, and how else are you going to get more experience?
How else are you gonna learn? But God.
Yeah, no, but she did really well. I was
good.
She was very good, and she talked me through everything, and it was very painless. Wow, the best experience I've had at a doctor's office so far. So
not you on Yelp, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Shout out
recommend
to what's her name? Whatever her name was.
Whatever her
Great
name
pap
was.
smear.
Good luck on your 3rd year of medical school. Rooting for you. But I turned an uncomfy moment. I turned an uncomfy moment, and with past uncomfy experiences, and kind of leaned into it and ended up being okay.
Okay.
So that's my uncomfy
Bravo for
wumpy.
you. I'm proud of you. Mine is not so interesting. I think I'm just where does the time go? It's middle October. I don't know. I'm just like today, for example, it just flew by. I'm like sitting here, like I was gonna just take a quick body shower, and then I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like here, you know what? Let's just wash the hair today too. And now I'm sitting here with wet hair and no makeup, and I'm at least cozy. I'm just like, wow, that was exhausting. And before this, I literally ran to Costco after the seminar that I was teaching. I like ran to Costco to pick up some stuff for.
Not you daring, like, facing Costco.
Yeah. I was like, I need gas. I need my protein shakes. I need some food for tonight. You know, these guavas look good. It was just a whole. That's okay.
Did it.
Going on a time crunch does prevent me from wandering. It didn't stop me completely. I bought these Tom Yum flavored rice snack things.
Yum.
So we'll see.
Tom Yum.
Right, Tom Yum. But it didn't stop me completely from buying, you know, things I don't need. But
you know, you can only do so much.
you can only do so
You
much.
can only ask so much from yourself when you're walking through the new snack aisle, you know?
I made a turn and I didn't realize where I was going, and I was like, oh, the universe wanted me to be here. These snacks were meant for me. You know what happened is I saw our popcorn, the popcorn that we like, the Himalayan Gold.
The lesser evil. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I turned down that aisle to grab the popcorn, and that's what happened. But I'm just tired.
Yeah,
dude. It's getting darker earlier. It's just, there's so much.
The seasons are changing finally.
Yes.
I feel like for California specifically, it's like hot. And then once it starts changing, you forget that happens every year. Yeah. And you're like, wait, hold on. Why am I leaving work and it's like dark?
Right. And then it's gonna change. Let's not even talk about it because I'm gonna get depressy. Yeah. So let's move on. We're talking about friendship breakups today.
Another happy, non-depressy
topic. Love it. But I do have a question for you, Melissa.
Ooh.
Have you ever had to break up with a friend before? And 2, have you ever been broken up with?
Yes and yes.
Oh, interesting.
I feel like we share one.
Oh my God.
I let you have that moment to think. I was like, let her process.
You know, that does prove that time builds indifference.
Yeah, no, truly. I also had to, when you said that, I was like, have I? I have.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I have probably been broken up with in terms of friends, and I probably didn't really even notice because it's one of those like just slow fade situations.
But like, do you not feel like they were in your life anymore? Like you don't even notice them not being in your life?
Not really.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I then also share the friendship breakup with you.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like that was mutual though, in a way.
Yeah. And breakups can be mutual.
They absolutely can all the time. And I do have another one though that I feel like I was the one that was broken up with. And I've come to terms with realizing that like actually probably
Is it for
fine.
the best? Yeah.
I hate saying that. I hate being like, yeah, them being out of my life is like for the best, because like seasons change and people come into your life and you might reconnect later. And so I don't want to be like, oh, well, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But it did teach me a lot about myself and about what I value in people. And it really opened my eyes to, there's one story we're going to read that talks about matching people's energy. And it really opened my eyes to like, oh, who in my life is matching my energy and who is not. And so that was just, but we'll get into that a little bit more because we're going to read these stories and we're going to talk about it because, you know, there's different ways of coping, and it seems like people have different ways of breaking up and coping with it.
Can I say something before we start? When we were, you know, inquiring about these, we were asking the people to send stories. And when things were coming my way, it seemed very relatable, like so many people, and I want to say we reached out to people who tend to be similar demographic to us. There are some differences for sure, but it seemed like this is something that is a common life experience, but I feel like not many people talk about it. At least I don't think I've heard it very much. I mean, everyone talks about the romantic relationship breakups.
Yeah.
But there are other relationships in your life, and sometimes those relationships go through their own kind of breakup. So I just thought it was comforting in a way.
Yeah.
To know that, like, this is a common thing that people navigate through.
Right.
So.
Or we don't call it a breakup if it's a friend, right? We'll say that they are more distant, or we don't see them anymore, or we choose
or they
not to
fell
have
off,
them
or like
right. Mm-hmm. We call it different things, but I mean, in essence, it is the fracturing or the break of a relationship that you've had with another person. And as you'll see in the stories that we're about to read, it's for so many different reasons. So
yeah,
do you want me to take the first one? I can read
sure.
the first one. Okay.
Yeah.
So our first submission is not on the same page. Okay, here we go. One of my first friendship breakup stories actually occurred in the middle of college, a time of change, I will say. Mm-hmm. I had a friend, pseudonym John, from high school and had the exact same major as me, so naturally we ended up in the same classes. I am a pretty studious person in general, so I was usually the one sharing notes or tips for all these classes. One week, I had to skip school for an entire week because my grandfather had passed away. So naturally, I went to John and told him I had a family emergency and asked him to take notes in class. When I returned to school the following week, I asked for the notes and he nonchalantly said, "Oh, I just fell asleep in class," and that was the end of it. My goal was to graduate school early, so I felt like he wasn't taking my goals seriously. The red flag was that he didn't even ask if I was doing okay after the death in the family, and of course, just not come through on a simple request. I realized this person was just not supportive of me, so I stopped talking to them, and he did not even offer an apology. There wasn't even a big fight that ended it all, which showed me how little they valued this friendship. To this day, we don't even follow each other on social media. Now I have no hesitation matching other people's energy if they choose not to show up. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic, like, actions speak louder than words situation where there's and one of my friends recently put a poll on her Instagram of like, what is the most valued part of a friendship?
Yeah.
And I put empathy. And like, there's such a lack of empathy or even understanding of this person from this person, of his supposed friend that, you know, and the fact that it was like, okay, I know that she's going through a hard time. I'm going to take notes, which he should have already been doing already on his own.
So that makes me wonder, like, was this person the one taking notes for John? Like, was she or he like the sole provider of the notes and the tips for passing class? Like, bye.
Yeah. We're not being used here.
Right.
What is this one-sidedness?
Well, I think it's one of those things where, I mean, I know this is typical of like high school to college friendships. They don't always last the test of time. You're one person in high school, and in college, you learn so much about yourself and the world. You're exposed to so many other things. And I think maybe this is just one of those times where you know, are not actually aligned in who you are or what you want to do. Yeah. And clearly this person was not on the same page.
And proximity really does make a difference sometimes, because
I agree.
Yeah, in college and in high school, those friends that you see all the time, when you have that opportunity for separation, when you go off to different college or whatever you end up doing, sometimes those relationships don't last because proximity is a big portion of the reason why it's sustaining itself in terms of that type of relationship or friendship. So yeah, I feel like one of these this seems like one of those friendships that's born from having a lot of similar classes with each other, but not necessarily built on a foundation of actually caring or wanting to have a connection with them genuinely.
Okay. Devil's advocate, though, I will say, what if this person had unrealistic expectations of John? Like, this person sounds to me kind of like someone who overfunctions and who takes it upon themselves to be the one to do the thing for other people. And that means that sometimes, and I've been in this boat, which is why I'm saying this, sometimes that's just not reciprocated. And it takes an incident like this at times for you to realize that you are helping someone else who maybe doesn't need or want the help, first of all, and then second of all, who won't match your energy in return. I mean, so then you
Yeah.
get the choice of like, do I keep this person in my life or do I not? And obviously they chose not to be friends anymore. But the fact that this person didn't even like ask if they were okay or care, like, I just wonder like what made this person think like, oh, John is a friend, I should do things for him. Is it really just like the proximity?
Maybe. I hope that there was more to this friendship than,
I mean, you would hope,
yeah.
but okay, wait. I do want to read another one to you because I think it's along the same lines of someone potentially over functioning for others in a way that was detrimental to themselves. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel this on a deep level.
Yeah.
So the next story we're going to read is Friendship Freeloader.
Okay.
After high school, there was a small subset of people that got really close to each other and would have semi-regular hangouts like going to Dodger games, Universal Studios, and everything in between. I'm a type A planner, so when it comes to hanging out with my friends, I usually am the one to do research and put in the time and effort to plan our hangouts. I do that out of love for everyone. That was like a red flag for me, but I was like, I get it. And then she says, or he, but all I ask for is some appreciation in return. One particular friend, Cody, had a lot of red flags that I should have noticed sooner. It started with small things like taking advantage of me picking up the tab and not fully paying me back, to showing up hours late to a group trip when they were in charge of feeding the entire group, and just having an overall negative attitude over little things. Think of the type of person who would talk shit about the food at a baby's birthday party. I felt like I held the brunt of the planning for everything in this friendship and began feeling taken advantage of when at my own birthday party, he told the entire group, we should do a group trip again. Blank will plan it all. I wasn't even part of the conversation. It compounded when Cody confronted me months later, saying that I don't put in the effort to hang out anymore. We tried to salvage the friendship, but my final straw was when I picked up the tab at another friend's birthday party, and he was the only one out of 8 people to not pay me for over a year despite multiple reminders. It's not that I won't pay for my friends. Clearly, they've paid multiple times.
Right.
In fact, I'd be more than happy to cover my friends if they need me to. But it was the expectation that I would cover his tab is what made me furious.
I will say that there are a lot of relatable things to this. We've talked about similar experiences for both of us in the past.
Yes.
This is like my story. Like, I didn't submit this, but I feel this story so much. I mean, we've talked about how we've both been the planners for things,
Yes.
taking the initiative to start conversations about wanting to get together and stuff like that, and not going back to not matching energy. Sometimes we just, lack of responses or not timely responses, and then we talk about like adjusting our expectations for things and not assuming things.
Yeah.
And I see all of that in here.
I do. Okay, I wanted to talk about this one specifically and the other one because I was listening to a podcast recently, and there was a psychotherapist on there named Terry Cole, and she's got a book out about boundaries, and she talks about high functioning codependency, where basically you are always giving advice or worrying about other people's well-being, whether that's financial, emotional, whatever, to the detriment of yourself. And so there's this idea that, yeah, you're codependent, but in like a high functioning way. And we're having a hard time setting boundaries and letting other people kind of fend for themselves. And I definitely suffered from this. One of the friendship breakups that I experienced was because I felt like I was putting in so much effort to literally pay for this person. Like I paid for this person to come to my own birthday. And in hindsight, right? Like I see you like freaking out because
I remember when you were reading that, I literally thought of that exact situation that you were telling me about. I was like, oh, wow.
I should have been like, I'm sorry, you can no longer attend. If it was really contingent upon this, to me, small cost, right? But to you, it might be a big cost, and I need to respect that. If it was really contingent on that, then I should have just been like respectfully okay. But the codependent in me was like,
It's
no,
like, we
that's my
need them all there.
friend. I
Yeah.
want them there. I need to make it possible. I don't want this person and their partner to like have an argument about it, because I knew that like money was sometimes the thing that they would argue about. And so I took it upon myself to solve that problem when I definitely did not need to solve that problem. And I feel like this person, while I empathize deeply, right, it seems like this person also takes it upon themselves to
be the
worry about the
problem.
well-being of others and to make it their problem. And
To
it
be the
seems
problem
like,
solver. This is the
right,
problem solver out of the
it
friends.
is the problem solver. And so there's a lack of boundaries here for me. And I'm not blaming this person at all. Again, I deeply empathize because I have been this person.
Yeah.
But you and I, Melissa specifically, have been working on letting other people figure their shit out and not having to like over accommodate for them at the detriment of our well-being, which is hard.
It's hard. And I
us.
will also say it does, when there is a lack of boundaries or not enough boundaries, that's where you kind of, and again, this is not blaming this person,
No,
but it
not at
kind
all.
of invites this type of behavior from this type of person, where they will assume and that their friend is going to take care of it, which is that's not a balanced relationship at all.
Not at all. No.
And not really appreciative.
No.
You know?
No.
So,
and there's something to be said too for the slow fade out, which is what seems like happened. And I also, and I'm not, again, not blaming this person, because I didn't know how to have that conversation. And to be honest, it didn't really hit me until way after the quote unquote breakup. Like it didn't hit me till at least a year, until after we really hadn't talked for the year, right?
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on my own part, because we do have to take responsibility for our own actions and the role that we play in these relationships, whether it's friendship or romantic. So if you are relating to this, maybe take a moment, look inward, and think about like, oh, are we setting boundaries? Are we letting people take care of themselves? Like the fact that this happened multiple times too, you know, fool me once, shame on you. But then
fool
it's
me
like,
twice, shame.
I don't know, but just shame.
Shame on me.
Shame. Okay, on to the next.
Do you mind if I take the next one? Okay, yeah, because I think those first two were very, it was a nice transition to each other. But I feel like this one's a little bit different, so I'm excited to see what your initial thoughts are. So story 3 is friends with me or the perks. So I had a friend that I met through social media events. We hit it off because we had a love for food in common. We hung out a few times to catch up and stuff. Then they got super clingy, like asking to hang out like every other week. And when I said sure occasionally with proposed dates and times, she would respond with, actually, I'm busy at work or too exhausted on the weekends because of work. Can we do a super late night weekday, which is not a convenient time at all?
Yeah.
Not for a normal working person.
No wonder you're tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on top of that, she only wanted to go to the restaurant I work for, so free food perks. It was exhausting trying to work with her schedule. She didn't really consider mine at all. And the friendship felt forced, and I felt like I was being used. So I decided to ease off and use my energy elsewhere. It felt like a weight. Yeah, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders after that.
Yeah. This definitely sounds like friends for the perks.
Can I read someone similar, another story that's similar too?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because there was like so we had another one here, and then we can react to both of them. Like,
Of course.
this one is called Friendship or Business Venture.
Oh, God.
So, all right. So I recently moved to LA and had a few friends, but of course, always down to make new friends. I was at my friend's birthday party and I met Amanda, who was also in the same field of work as me, but a different specialty. She found out I knew how to place IVs and immediately was wanting to be friends and hang out. I didn't think much of it at the time, but just figured, oh, nice, a new friend. Well, every time she would ask to hang out, she would bring up her new business idea for an IV clinic and then would ask me if I would be willing to observe and teach her nurses IVs. Not something I'm comfortable doing, let alone doing for free.
Right.
I stopped hanging out with her and figured after some time she would get the hint and not ask stuff like that and just be friends. We go again for brunch and she brings up how I make more money than her and then asks if I'm interested in a side hustle. She asked me to support her business venture as a side hustle. I shot her down and said I'm happy with my current job and don't have the headspace for a side hustle. We finished brunch, but I could tell it was awkward. I wanted a friend, but she wanted money. So after that, I just stopped being down to hang, and it was a gradual breakup.
You know what?
I feel like
say,
the perks is the
Okay, but at least an Ivy clinic is like a legit business idea versus like, hey, do you
want
want
free
to be part
food.
of my MLM? You know, like, do you want to make more money on the side and be free from your 9 to 5? Like, you.
Yeah.
At least she wasn't trying to get her to join her pyramid.
Yeah, but it's obviously both of these stories, there is the hidden agenda.
There is a hidden agenda, yes.
Whether it's free food or maybe a hand in the pocket of this person that supposedly makes more money than her, you know?
Also, don't nurses get trained to do IVs as part of nursing school? So, like, if she hired nurses, wouldn't they already know how? I just have many questions about that. But
I don't know the specifics. There's different
Right.
types of nurses and different levels, so
I guess that's true. I don't know anything about nursing. I'm not a nurse. But okay, that's fair. I think both of these are very much, I want something from you. And there are people who are really just in it for what other people can offer them. And
I have like a bonus side story that I'll just take a minute that I just heard about. One of our mutual friends, I was hanging out with him yesterday, and he was talking about how there are some friends that he hangs out with, or he has a group of friends that he hangs out with, which are just the friend group that goes to various parties in LA. And so therefore he meets like acquaintances, friends of friends, and things like that. Yeah. So, which is fine. But he has been in situations this past year where he's met the same person multiple times, and they do not remember who he is, or he's had interactions with people where they start off the conversation with identifying who you know and what types of connections you have, or how many followers you have before they even decide to talk to you or engage with you. I'm like, wow. At least they're like straight up with their intention.
I would prefer that. But for the person who are they pretending to not know him, or are they legit on drugs?
Maybe on drugs, but also potentially, they just want. You hear the name and it's just out the ear, and like you don't even remember.
Even recognize the face. Like, are we acting brand new each time? Because then that energy needs to be matched.
They reintroduce themselves to him like every time.
I hope he reintroduces himself as well and pretends
what
he's
he
never
told
met
me
this person.
What he told me is that he just stopped trying to introduce himself to any of these people and just like he just sticks to the core group of friends that he's with, that he's going to these functions with, because the friends of friends, it ends up being like, okay, I've met you like 5 times.
We don't always have to be best friends. We can just be
that's exactly
party acquaintances. We don't gotta yeah, those are rough though. I think it's also about setting boundaries though, because it sounds like this person, at least for the nurse one, was able to, actually both of them were kind of able to recognize like, oh, this person doesn't want to be my friend genuinely. They want something else. So you gotta cut it off. Yeah. I think the dangerous part is when you keep them around and you just keep thinking that they're going to change, or you're too scared to have the conversation or whatever it is. That's, I think, when that's a lack of boundaries too, where you just keep them around, or and just, I don't know, hope it'll change forever for the
This
better.
also reminds me of I think we talked about this in the Why Your Friends Suck episode, where I had a specific experience where I felt like one of my friends was just coming to me in times of need for them. And so it was very one-sided in that they were just kind of wanting to hang out, and then it would turn into like a emotional dumping situation.
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying that that is the same as these two stores, but in a way it is. It's they're hanging out for a specific purpose that is just beneficial for them.
I think there are genuinely times where people are going through a thing.
True.
But the question is that their whole personality? Are they only ever contacting you when they're in crisis? And I think, too, I'm sensitive to this topic because there was a moment in my life where I was just really going through it. And it was like a 2-year long minimum time period. And I needed people around me to help lift me up. However, I did have some friends who, or one friend in particular, who was really good about setting a boundary of saying, hey, like, I forgot how it was phrased, but essentially it was, I love you, I care about you. I just can't keep hearing about this one issue. And that, I respected that so much. And I know I've talked about it in the toxic relationships episode. I think there's a level of owning setting a boundary. Yeah. And that's really hard to do. It's scary to say to that person, you know, that's it's becoming too much. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I have to listen. I have to take it on. I have to be the one to help fix the problem, or I want to. But then it becomes really draining, and it shouldn't.
And it could also be hard because it feels like, wow, this person is really going through something, and then I'm going to add another thing by saying,
right,
I can't do this anymore, or like, you know. Yes. And so kind of like kicking them while they're down kind of situation.
Okay,
feeling.
But the psychologist that I was telling you about earlier in her book about boundaries also talks about letting people go through their own journey. And I was actually in a situation recently where I was constantly hearing about something, and my therapist said to me, how can you respect that is this person's journey? They need to learn whatever they're learning in their own way. And you can listen when you have the capacity, but you can also name, I can't listen to this right now, but when you're ready to step away from the situation, I'm going to be here for you. And that was really hard. I was terrified.
Wow.
It's scary. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you know, you can listen without feeling bad for that person. You can listen without having to feel like you have to fix it. Because nothing that you say, really, the person has to decide on their own that they want to fix it. But that being said, it can be draining. And if you're not great at setting the boundary, then it's definitely super draining.
Yeah.
And if that's their whole personality, that's a little different. Like, is something chronically wrong with them? Has there never been a period in time where this person has been okay? Because that's different.
Yeah, it's very true.
Some people are addicted to the drama, and I think we have a story, actually, a submission all about that.
This next story I'm excited to get into because I think it talks about being in different stages of your life and transitioning through those stages with friends.
In addition to the whole texting when something's wrong only that we just discussed. So
right,
layers.
Take
it away, Melissa.
So I feel like I've been in the process of breaking up with a friend for maybe a year or two at this point. I'm in a group of girlfriends, and we are all in the same stage of our life together. We always, include each other, make plans together, and kind of just give updates. But there's one friend in the group who only texts when she has something distressing going on and wants comfort, but will never comfort anybody else or reply to anybody else's texts. She'll make plans with us and flake, and I feel like at this point in my life, I'm just kind of over it. And she'll make plans with us, then say she was busy or she couldn't do it because one of her kids took a nap or something like that. But it's like we all make a little bit of a sacrifice to see each other because that's what friendship is. As adults with kids, it takes effort on all sides. And so I'm just slowly backing out of her life a little bit. She'll text us because she wants us to go to her kid's birthday, but then won't come to ours.
Wow.
I think I got everyone invited to her kid's birthday except me. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, except me. And I just feel like I'm through with trying to be a friend to someone who's not really a friend to me.
Yeah.
And although I've never been super close with her, we are all close together as a group. I just feel like we can't keep accommodating for her needs. For instance, like planning a holiday party based on her availability when everyone else is free that day and the likelihood for her coming is really low and she's always late anyway. Yikes. Okay.
See, but that's boundaries again. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in this weird place in my adult friendship where I don't feel like it's absolutely necessary to break up with my friend verbally and say I'm done with you, but rather that I'm just done, you know? And I don't need to say anything about it because it just brings more drama to the situation when I already have enough people in my life that love me and that I love and that make the effort to maintain relationships. I think that as adults, especially with kids, it does take an effort, and there's only so much flaking and so much negative energy I can go into a relationship with, especially when there's only so much time that as adults we have to keep two relationships straight. It's not like in college where you have a whole bunch of friends and somehow you manage to keep up with them and come back together and just party with them. Right now, this is a time in our lives where we just don't have the mental or emotional energy capacity to deal with that kind of drama anymore.
I don't even have kids, and yeah, that seems like unreasonable. To always plan for the person who's not even going to
plan around them, yeah.
Yeah, that would make me so mad. But again, it's like, okay, then for this person, we say, it's going to happen on this day. We hope you can make it. Yeah.
I got this submission directly to me, so I know who submitted it, and I will provide a little bit of background without revealing who they are. But
context. We love context.
Yeah, but the latter half of this story where it was talking about how she doesn't seem like it's even worth it to have like a formal sit down and talk about this. Because there are other people in her friend group that are like, should we bring this up with her? I feel like we should bring it up with her. But like she said, it just seems like there is no reason to make more of or put more energy to it, because it's just going to cause more drama than is already happening. And she just doesn't have the capacity or even the desire to even put that effort in, because it's already fizzling out as it is. So I was like, okay, interesting. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things for me, and I don't know who submitted this, but I'm wondering if everyone in the group is feeling the same way. At what point do we bring it up?
Yeah.
But if it's only this person, then maybe it's not. Yeah, maybe it's not. It doesn't seem like the other person even notices or would notice at all that they're not really present in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed that way. I mean, I don't know the full, obviously, perspective. But yeah, I can
Well,
feel...
I'm unbiased because I don't know who's anyone in this situation. I'm a fan of letting people know when you're upset with them. I am also a fan of communicating when you don't feel respected or valued. So I do also have to wonder how she thinks, does she think that this behavior is okay? Has no one ever said anything about her flaking or being late or only texting when she wants something? Because this behavior seems to me on the outside that it's kind of gone unchecked. And if you really don't value this person in your life, that's one thing. But I think if you wanted to maintain a relationship, then at least say something. So there's also a choice, I think, of how much do you care to keep this person around.
And it seems that from her perspective, she's at a point where she doesn't
care about the friendship.
She just said she's done. She doesn't think that there's any more energy that she can or wants to put into it, because it's just repeated behavior. And who knows if it has gone unchecked or not. Yeah. If it has gone checked, then that's even more reason to be like oh well, damn. If effort has been put into trying to call it out,
brought it up before, even small, like, hey, I don't like that you're always late, or hey, I notice you only reach out when you need something, literally anything, then yeah, I definitely am on the same page.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just how much do you want to keep the person around? And also, there are energy vampires. We talked about this in an episode like ages ago. But there are people who just like kind of their personality is very drama. Some people are addicted to drama. Some people suck energy out of others, whether they mean to or not.
Yeah.
And either you set the boundary with that person or it kind of blows up or fades out, I think, are kind of the only ways that it goes.
Yeah. It seems like the common theme that we're seeing or occurrence that we're seeing in these stories is either it's a straight up breakup conversation or it's a slow fizzle fade situation.
Yeah.
So,
I actually know someone, and I'm not going to get into the details too much because I don't have permission to share, but essentially it's a very similar thing where, you know, my friend has a friend, and that friend would call incessantly, text, always with an issue, a problem. There was something always going on. And it was wearing my friend down. And I don't know the full context, but it ended leading up to kind of like a blow up. And now I don't think that they're friends anymore. And it's hard because, like you said earlier, if I say something, it's just another thing that adds on to their already distressed, dramatic
life.
And my friend tried to remove herself, wouldn't always answer, wouldn't always reply, pick up, whatever. I don't know, though, that a boundary was verbalized. But again, I can't be sure. And that's hard, too, though, because having the conversation is really hard. Because you either are nervous about what the outcome will be, you don't know if it's worth it, or you don't want to add onto what's already happening with
on
them.
their plate.
Yeah. So again, I think I keep going back to this, but I think I'm standing on it. It kind of goes back to like, how much do you care to keep the friendship alive?
A lot of people tend to just associate these types of difficult or thoughts or labels to things in romantic relationships.
Yes.
But
yes.
Again, all relationships.
All relationships. The domino effect, part 1. I'm a 34-year-old female, LOL.
The background, I appreciate the context, setting the scene.
Very Reddit, love. Have had breakups with friends in different stages of my life, but one instance tore me apart and shook me to my core for years. I have come to realizations as to why things didn't work out between us. Although a part of me will always remain hurt in some way or another, I have become more accepting to reasons as to why they are no longer in my life for the better. I would say I have been a people pleaser, especially towards friends, but also remain to be a type of person that can be honest with the ones I hold closely to my heart. I am not the type of person who sweeps things under the rug. I had been part of a large group of friends that essentially turned their backs on me after I had an issue with one of the girls in the group. This individual and I were best friends, even like sisters during our time in high school. We were inseparable and adored each other. Our beliefs about how we would approach different parts of our lives took a turn during college or into post-grad life. I was more conservative at the time and focused on achieving my goals for myself with or without a man. She had a strong sense of finding herself and working towards her dreams with a strong motivation or what appeared to be codependence from whoever was her significant other at the time. Personally, I know now, I projected my wants of her to do things for herself as an independent woman onto her. However, she was probably not in the right stage of her life to accept to see where I was coming from as not malicious. In my 20s, I was more in tune with expressing how I felt throughout circumstances, but I was not emotionally aware enough to see how my words could affect other people. Confrontation has always been something that is uncomfortable for me, but I would force myself to do it, especially if it would provide clarity. In my final attempt to fix our relationship, we agreed to meet up at a local spot. I remember feeling her cold and uncaring vibe towards me as I was talking about how I felt, what was going on between us, and how it affected our common friends as well. She clearly didn't even want to look me in the eye and continued to flip through her book and write in her notebook, pretty much making me feel like I was a waste of her time. Part 2. I remember feeling hurt and shocked that this was the person I once thought was my sister could be so cruel to me as I was pouring my heart out. I know I had openly admitted my mistakes and flaws in our relationship and how we both hurt one another. I recall I told her, "Please, I'm trying to fix this." And she responded, "I'm not trying to fix this. I'm just letting you talk." I was in complete shock to her response. I then told her as I got up and left that I don't know about the future, but at this time in my life, I don't need someone like her in it. She agreed she didn't need me in her life either. She quickly packed up her things as I walked away. She texted me the next day to say she didn't know I still cared so much. Being hurt from our conversation, I did tell her that she belittled the fact that I cared about fixing things between us, and it was probably for the best that we leave things where they are. The years that preceded the fallout and those afterwards too are some of the darkest times in my life. Having your close group of friends choose one person over you and not talk to you or invite you to places was extremely hurtful, especially as a young adult. I started not to trust anyone, and I chose not to have new friends or let anyone be close to me, simply because I didn't ever want to be hurt again, to be made outcast, or feel a sense of injustice of being portrayed as the bad person because you were not the one others chose to hear out or stay friends with, all because of one fallout. I did eventually seek help from therapy, and I needed to learn to accept how things are meant to be. Now in my 30s, I know if I have those issues with current friends, we would all be in an emotionally mature state where we could openly talk to one another and fix our issues. Some of them have even called me out on my own flaws or issues, which has shaped me to become more emotionally aware and a mature person. At points in my life, I have even taken a break with some of my current best friends, and then we choose to come back together. Those in my life now have shown me equitable resilience, respect, and love towards our friendships. I am now the happiest surrounding myself with friends who show the same effort to care about me as I show to them, no matter what stage of their lives we're in. Friendship, like any romantic relationship, is a two-way street, and you must be able to communicate with one another and choose to grow together. That part. That ending part. You have to communicate and grow together. You just have to. Otherwise,
it's not just for romantic relationships, it's for any relationship. I can see how you can build a level of distrust when you have a core group of friends and all of them choose one person and then you're the one that's left, you know?
That's devastating because then you really feel like you're the one who's something
in the wrong.
I mean, throughout our whole conversation, we've been having moments where we've each said that you have to reflect on yourself and kind of work on yourself. And I think it took this person a long time potentially to reflect on themselves. And I know we're only hearing one side of the story. I'd be so curious to hear the other person's perspective and the group's perspective. It truly makes me wonder, why did everyone rally behind this one person?
Yeah.
And I appreciate though that this person did try to fix it, and it makes me sad to read that the other person was so dismissive. Yeah.
And dismissive definitely is a good way to describe that interaction. And then having to move through your young adulthood, like,
traumatized.
Going through I don't know exactly the timing of this, but I'm assuming it was like mid to early college when she tried to attempt to fix things, because it was high school friends and
high school friends that moved to college.
So maybe okay. So,
and it also said post grad, so this carried on throughout. This is long-term friendship, and I think there's something to be said about long-term friendships ending. Like in that other story, where she was like...
a high school friend.
Yeah, and I think this one too, she described her as like my sister. And I think I relate so hard to thinking that someone is so close to you, especially because I don't have siblings. And so for me, my friends feel like my family, my chosen family.
Yeah.
And so to think that like someone who I consider to be family
and has been present in your life for that long,
for all these big events, knows everything about you, then kind of turns around and like doesn't even want to fix the friendship. That sucks.
That's hurtful.
That is hurtful. And to think, that the other person was like, I'm not even trying to fix this. I'm just trying to let you talk. Why even show up then?
Yeah, why are you even there?
Why show up? Right.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like a slap in the face almost, to be like, okay, we'll meet up.
Yeah.
And then not even be open to having a conversation.
Like my therapist says, you reconnect with people down the line, but this one seems like it's not going to be a reconnection.
Yeah, and I'm glad that this person that submitted this story is very much did their own introspection and knows essentially just similar to when you have a romantic breakup, you kind of use that as lessons learned for what you are looking for and value in future relationships. So in friendships, her current friendships, and I'm glad that she is in a spot, or he is in a spot that like is so much better than what she was dealing with.
Well, we got so many submissions, which we're so grateful for. We have a part 2 coming next week, but it seems like the stories that we read today really all have to do with certain themes about setting boundaries and not letting people take advantage of you and deciding, whether or not a friendship is worth it. And you and I shared our own experiences with friendship breakups. So we end each episode by sharing how can you be more comfortable with it. And so for me, one of the things that I've had to repeat to myself about relationships ending, especially ones that were really close to me or very important, is to remind myself what Jillian always says to me, which is that people are going to go through their own journeys in the same way that, you are. And cutting people off is very black and white. And, there might be a time where many years down the road, you reconnect with that person and you find a common ground again. So it's hard for me personally to be like, I'm gonna cut you out forever. But I can say now that I'm a little more mature that for me, it's about making the choice. Are you matching my energy? Are you somebody I can rely on? Are you only around when things are good? Or will you be there with and for me in the same way that I would want to be there for you? So like with that money one, I'm willing to pick up the tab. Are you willing to do the same? And then I Venmo you and we trust each other. Or will you cover me sometimes because I would cover you? You just have to kind of learn people. And for me, the biggest lesson I've learned is people will show you who they are and you need to listen. I've been very bad about listening. They will show you. They will. And you said earlier, actions speak louder than words. So for you, how would you say that you've been more comfortable, if you have, with this whole idea of relationships ending?
I think some of these stories I like that some of these stories had a nice moment of realization or a moment of self-reflection, because I think that is important in a lot of the topics that we talk about on this podcast. And This is no exception. I think really focusing, and you brought it up earlier too, where it was taking responsibility for your part in the circumstance as well, and being mature enough to admit sometimes that you are part of the quote-unquote problem or reason in this friendship breakup if it leads to that, or friendship issue if it leads to that breakup situation. But I think what will make a lot of people better friends to each other is if we work on ourselves. And I think
what a concept,
right? It is a huge concept to wrap your head around, because I think, it's easy to say, oh, you'll be a better partner, you'll be a better friend, you'll be a better daughter, sister, whatever, if you are the best version of yourself. But I think a lot of the times when it comes to friendships, we kind of, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that's the first instinct. You're comfortable with this person, so then that ends up being an opportunity to make assumptions or not fully communicate what you're feeling all the time, because maybe you're assuming that they understand and then that's when miscommunications happen. It's hard to take responsibility sometimes when something wrong happens in a friendship. It is easier to point fingers, of like, oh, this is the reason, but taking the responsibility and doing that self-reflection and working on those things is going to make you a better friend in the future. I'm excited to get into part 2 because, like Vanessa said, we have so many submissions and we're so grateful. But in the meantime, thank you all for listening to another episode of the I'm Uncomfortable podcast. So be sure to follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at I'mUncomfortable.podcast. We're also on YouTube at I'm Uncomfortable Podcast, where we post the video versions of our episodes. So if you'd like to see our faces, we also have some special clips on our YouTube. So be sure to check that out and join our Facebook group where we release our episodes a full day early if you want to be part of that exclusive club. So go over there and find us at I'm Uncomfortable Podcast. And of course, we are available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever. We release new episodes every week. So we will see you next week with part 2, and we will see you the week after that too. So see you then.